I'm looking forward to sharing with you the treasures I've been at doing, revealing treasures that are in plain sight. So nothing special from my side, but the sources I'll be drawing from for what I'll share with you momentarily are immensely rich. I mean, just my jaw drops, and it feels like an immense privilege to be able to pass on this wisdom going back to the time of the Buddha, 1,500 years ago, to a Sangha, and so on. So I'll give the talk, maybe as long as 90 minutes, but I'll try to make sure not longer than that. Then we'll take a break. Do you think 15 minutes is good before we come back for the soak? 15 minutes, good enough? Okay, good. Thank you, Carmen. And your good buddy over here, you know, Yishe. And what's your name again? I'm sure I've seen you someplace. Michael? Something like that. So all good. So I really feel like this is a magnificent composition, but I've plagiarized every single note, you know, from these great beings that I'll be citing. So there's really nothing original from my side at all, except for maybe one analogy, which I really like. It just came to mind today. That's mine. That's mine. Everything else borrowed. But let's begin with taking refuge in bodhicitta. Visualize Vajradhara, Samathabhadra, indivisible, from our root guru, in the space in front of us, surrounded by a host of bodhisattvas, of yidams, dhammapalas, dakinis, gazing upon this ultimate object of refuge. Sangye chudan soki chonamna, chanju badu dane kyapsu chi. Daki jinzo gibet sonam ge dola penjir, sangye du barsho. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I take refuge until perfect enlightenment. And by my practice of generosity and so on, by the accumulations collected in these ways, I shall achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye churan soki chonam la chanju badu, dani kapsuchi daki jinzo gibet sonam ki, dola penjir sangye du barsho. Honaso. So I've given a title to the notes of the music that's composed here. Crucial points in the practice of shamatha, a brief guide to mental health and well-being. And I'd like to start out by citing an old friend who's been dead for about 1,500 years. Arya Asanga. Arya Asanga. Really the epitome of a great Mahasiddha and great Mahapandita of the Nalanda tradition. So, among his many compositions, as an Arya, viewing reality from that perspective of a person who has realized nirvana, realized the ultimate nature of reality, has now reached a path that is absolutely irreversible to arahatship if he were on the Shravaka path. He was not, but to Buddhahood. But this is an Arya Marga, Arya path. And having achieved that, one of the irreversibles that he had achieved by so doing is that although not all of the connate or inborn mental afflictions were expunged yet as an Arya, but all of those that he picked up along the way, all the acquired mental afflictions that we just pick up from our environment and so forth, those were irreversibly forever dispelled. And so this man speaks from a perspective of knowing reality as it is. He was not only an Arya, but of course he was an Arya Bodhisattva. So literally unimaginable compassion and bodhicitta with profound absolutely penetrating insight into both the relative or deceptive nature of the mind as well as the ultimate nature of mind, which is nirvana. He had all of this. And from that perspective, an Arya's perspective, from which we have the so-called Four Noble Truths, which are four aspects of reality from an Arya's perspective. What's most important about reality? From an Arya's perspective, the reality of suffering, its source, freedom, and the path to freedom. If you had only four things to say, that's all you would say as an Arya, because that's what it looks like if you're an Arya. What would you most want to share with all sentient beings? Those four. Because he's addressing what we already care about. Whether we're cockroaches, whether we're amoeba, whether we're living in a hell realm or in a pure land, we all want to be free from suffering. It's something we share with the most vile creatures in the universe. We share with the most sublime bodhisattvas in the universe. Common ground. We all want to be free of suffering. But most of us don't know how. Tough. If it would only end at death, it would be really kind of a small story. But the fact is, of course, it doesn't. That just makes this a big problem, to put it mildly. So from his perspective, while we speak of the Buddha as being the great physician, you've heard that, haven't you? The great physician, the Dharma, the medicine, the Sangha, the nurses, and so forth. If the Buddha Shakyamuni is the great physician, as we come to Arya Asangas, Abhisamaya, Samuchaya. It's in this classic text, renowned text, still studied 1,500 years after he's passed away, that he lays out his map of the mind, of just highlighting 51 mental processes. Now there are countless more, scores more, maybe hundreds more. In English we have such a rich vocabulary describing so many types of emotions, desires, attention, and so forth, that incredibly rich. But he just plucked out 51 mental processes. He said, if you'd like to be free from suffering and its causes, you need to know your mind. And this is what you really need to know. There are 51 mental processes, and you should be able to identify all of them. And among them, 26 are mental afflictions. 6 primary, 20 derivative. And 11, he gave just a list of 11 virtues. There are many, many more. But he gave just a list of 11 wholesome mental processes. So he laid this out. Here's a map of your mind for those who are seeking to set out on a trip to achieve freedom. There are many, many more things you can know about the mind. And Western psychologists and so forth have unearthed many, many aspects of the mind. But it's not clear to me they're any closer to liberation now than they were 150 years ago. But Arya Sangha had already arrived there, already realized nirvana. So 26 mental afflictions, 11 wholesome. So laying this out, coming back to the Buddha Shakyamuni, if he was the great physician, then Arya Sangha, with this text, the Abhisamaya, Abhidhamma Samachaya. He's the great nutritionist. He's a great nutritionist. Because he's telling you among these 51 types of mental events that will arise in your mind stream, 6 of them are really hardcore poison, like arsenic and strychnine and et cetera, 6 really hardcore, primary. And then 20 are still poisonous. They just have to be derivative poisons. But all of these will afflict you. They will disturb your mind. They will unsettle your mind. They will poison your mind. And when you succumb to these poisons of the mind, then the behavior flowing from them will simply perpetuate your suffering. You need to know 6 primary and 20 derivative. You need to know who your enemies are. Because these are what are keeping you trapped in samsara for countless lifetimes. You need to know these. Now there are many, many virtues, but he highlighted only 11. That was enough. That was sufficient. That was sufficient. Okay? So he's a nutritionist. The wholesome ones, like the 11, which he just plucked these out, these are really important. These are like, and as I said, we're nutritionists, not really joking, any more than we joke when we say the Buddha was a great physician. We're not joking. is a very powerful analogy, a very close analogy. And he was a great nutritionist, because if you partake of, if you sustain yourself by way of the wholesome mental processes, they will nourish you, they sustain you, they will give rise to wholesome behavior. It will turn out well. They're healthy, they're wholesome. They will lead to happiness, ultimately genuine well-being, ultimately liberation and enlightenment itself. 11, good to know who your friends are, right? But the 26, by their very nature, they disturb the mind, they warp the mind, they poison the mind, and when we activate with them, appropriate and reify them, then they give rise to all the troubles that we sentient beings create in the world. All the troubles we create, that we create. Not just earthquakes and natural disasters, but we create. And if you read the news, and I just look at the headlines, almost all of the suffering that's being reported on could have been avoided because we did it. Earthquake here, there, a typhoon here, yeah. Okay, we didn't do that, although who knows how much we're upsetting the weather patterns. So he's a great nutritionist, telling you these are the foods you should not partake of. If you do, they will harm you. Not because God said so or Buddha said so. It's just like a nutritionist saying, if you eat this kind of food, it's really bad for you. You will feel bad. It will shorten your lifespan. Your lifespan. It will make you feel ill. But these foods, these are really good for you. He's a nutritionist, right? Okay. Now this is leading to a little quiz. It's fun, and I'm not going to put anybody in the spot. I think I tortured you enough 6 weeks ago. So now no torture today. But I'm going to read, just to give a list. They're English translations of words that are quite easy to understand. Nothing mysterious about them. And the quiz is, I'm going to give you a list of just 5 of these mental processes. And just listen to the words as you understand them. Because again, there's no special esoteric Buddhist meaning. And as I'm reciting each one, think to yourself, is this a wholesome mental process or mental factor? Is it virtue? Okay, is it virtue or is it not? It's really simple, right? Wholesome or not. Okay, you ready? Okay, everybody sit up straight. Okay, here's the first one. And the question is it what I'm citing, these 5, are they wholesome mental processes or not? Really simple, okay? Yes or no? There's no, well, on the one hand, as Taryn would say, one might consider this, but on the other hand, there's this, but my feeling is I'm actually ambivalent, but I could be this way. You can't do that. Yes or no, okay? But I'm not going to put you on the spot so you don't have to raise a hand, but remember your answers, okay? Here's the first one. You ready? Aspiration. Aspiration, yearning. Clear. Yeah? Second one, admiration. Also appreciation. 2. Third one, mindfulness. Fourth one, concentration, as in samadhi. And the 5th one, intelligence, prajna. Okay, that's it, just those 5. Okay? Aspiration, admiration, mindfulness, concentration, word is samadhi, and then intelligence, and the word is prajna, or shut up. Okay? And the question was, each of those, are they wholesome, or are they in some other category? Not among the 11. Are they wholesome? And now, I'm going to ask you, among those 5, ask you a simple question. I could ask you 3 questions. All of them? That'll be the first question. Now raise your hand. Second one, some of them, raise your hand. None of them, raise your hand. But if I were you, I'd be looking over at Doug and Eva. So they don't get to raise their hands. Because otherwise, you should wait for them to hands, whatever she said, whatever he said. So you have to keep your hands down, because I think you know the answer. Okay, are you ready? So don't look at them. It's on you. But the camera's not on you, so you'll not be experiencing international embarrassment. Okay? Okay, how many of you remember them, right? How many of you say all of them are virtuous, wholesome? Okay, significant number. How many would say one or more of them, but not all? Several more. How many would say none of them? Wow. Okay, for the camera's on, right? We had a pretty good sampling of each one of the three. Now, we are at a hermitage that used to be called not a hermitage. That should have been the hint. None of the above. None of the above. By nature, are virtuous, wholesome, give rise to well-being, and so forth. None of them. They're not among the 11. They're in another category altogether, simply called object ascertaining mental processes, because each of them have a very specific referent. Object ascertaining. You aspire to what? You admire, what do you admire? You're mindful of what? You're concentrating on what? You're intelligent with respect to what? So each one has a referent object ascertaining. But now, especially mindfulness, I mean, gosh, that's not a virtue. But many of you know why it's not. The real definition, the Buddhist definition, which has been kind of lost in the clouds of New Ageism, is bearing in mind. But what are you doing? You bearing in mind, I want to retaliate against Jack because he's such a mean guy, and I'm going to say this and this, I'm going to really put him down, I remember this is what I want to say. You're bearing that in mind? Well, that's clearly not virtue. Aspiring for what? To become famous, rich, to become a great sniper? Admiring, but who do you admire? A great villain? A great athlete? A great movie star? A great bodhisattva? Who do you admire? What are you mindful of? What are you concentrating on? Ask the sniper, what are you concentrating on? And he will say, this person's head. And intelligence. Do you know the wind? Direction of the wind, velocity of the wind, the altitude. A lot of intelligence to be able to shoot somebody in the head from 1 kilometer away. That's not a task for dummies. So you can see each of these 5 can be wholesome. They can be, of course. They can be afflictive, unwholesome, or they can be neutral, concentrating on what's for dessert today, And so there we go. So I wanted to start out there, because I think all of us listening, certainly here in this room, and many who are not in this room, who are in full-time retreat, and many others, for whom now is not the time to be in full-time meditative retreat, either to achieve shamatha or anything else. I think all of us listening, if you're listening to this, you must be interested in shamatha. Because if you're not, then you would have turned off the radio a long time ago for me, or the internet, or whatever. So we're all interested in shamatha. Well, and those of us who are really dedicated want to achieve shamatha, not for the in and of itself, but for all the wonderful things you can do with it. Is it enough to have a great aspiration to achieve shamatha, a great yearning? Is it enough to have a great admiration and appreciation for the benefits of shamatha, the state effects while you're resting in shamatha, the trait effects when you're off the cushion? Is it enough to have admiration, aspiration? Is it enough to be mindfully attending to the in and out breath, or the rising and falling of thoughts and images, or mindful of awareness itself? Is that enough? Is it enough to really develop single-pointed attention, highly focused, unified attention, focusing on the meditative object, samadhi? And is it enough to do so intelligently, bearing in mind that the mental factor of introspection is derivative of intelligence? So it's not listed among the 51, because it's already there. It emerges from intelligence. It's a type of intelligence. So is it enough to have a great aspiration, great admiration, developing strong mindfulness and strong samadhi, and doing so with very sharp introspection and intelligence? Is that enough? And the answer is, if that's all you've got, it's not even virtue. You could be practicing 16 hours a day. But if there's no virtue in the motivation, you may as well be in sniper training school, or air traffic controller school, or learning how to become a world-class chess player, and so forth. Or if you're a professional musician, they have to have incredibly good mindfulness, introspection, and so on and so on. But those 5, they become virtuous not by themselves. Otherwise, they'd be listed among the wholesome mental factors or processes, but because of their concomitant motivation. They have to be conjoined. They have to be pals. They have to be joined with a virtuous, like compassion, like renunciation, like patience, like loving kindness, and so forth. But they have to be paired with a wholesome mental process. Otherwise, they by themselves are not wholesome. They're not even virtue, which means they're not even dharma. So you could be practicing 14 hours a day, and you're not spending 1 minute practicing dharma. And will you achieve shamatha if your practice isn't even virtue? Not likely. So, with this in mind, I want to read you a story. Everybody likes a story. That was pretty heavy duty, right? Okay. I want to read you a story just because I love it. And it's a true story. It was written by Nagarjuna in the 2nd century of the Common Era. I'm going to read right through it with maybe a little commentary here and there. Let's see if it touches your heart like it touches mine. Okay? I heard this probably 50 years ago, because the Tibetans very much have this part of their lineage, and the Lamrim lineage and so forth. It's widely known among Tibetans. All right? Here's the story. So throttle back. I hope you simply enjoy this. It's the story of Chudapantaka. Chudapantaka, written about by Nagarjuna in his Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, his treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, chapter 39. Okay, you ready for a story? Good. I love story. Here we go. Mahapantaka and Chudapantaka were born from the union of a wealthy young girl in a Rajagriha, or Rajgir, and a slave. Already sounds like Romeo and Juliet. They were born at the side of a great highway, which is why they were named Great Path and Lesser Path, respectively. Raised by their grandparents, they embraced the Buddhist faith. Mahapantaka was the first to become a monastic, and shortly thereafter welcomed his brother into the order. Entrusted with his religious instruction, he gave him a very simple, the older brother gave the younger brother, very simple stanza to learn by heart. Papam nakuryan manasa navacha, which just means one should not commit evil with the mind or with speech. That's it, right? But Chudapantaka was so dim-witted, dushprajna, bad intelligence, that at the end of the 3 months he had not succeeded in memorizing it. One should not commit evil with the mind or with speech. 3 months he tried to memorize it without success. Yep. I thought somebody saying it should go up, would go up. 3 months. Couldn't do it. So it'd have to be, by modern standard, we say this man is severely retarded. I mean, clearly, I'm not laughing here. He's severely retarded. 3 months? Come on. And had severe ADD, attention deficit disorder, right? This man is impaired. He might have been institutionalized if you're living now, or probably given some drugs. So he had not succeeded after 3 months trying to memorize. One should not commit evil with the mind or with the something else. In the Avadana, another text, the Avadana mentions that the day that Chudapanta became a monk, on the very day that he became a monk, the very famous physician Jivaka, probably the most famous physician in all of India, and the personal physician of the Buddha, right? Jivaka invited the Buddha and the Sangha except for Chudapantaka, whom he deemed to be too stupid. He invited the Sangha, but you know the dummy there? Don't invite him. He's embarrassing. Tough on him, eh? So he deemed him too stupid, but the Buddha accepted the invitation. But noticing that the Sangha was not complete, he refused to partake of the meal. One day after lunch, all the monks in the Sangha walked to a bamboo grove for a nap. It was the height of summer with the sun beaming down like fire. The bhikkhus found its shade pleasant and restful, but Chudapantaka alone was weeping. I'm a big crybaby today, you can see. He was weeping. The Buddha happened to be walking by and kindly consoled him. Chundapataka said, "World's great one, my elder brother and I took the vow at the same time to be monastics. My brother's smart and attained the fruit of stream entry soon, became an Arya. But I'm stupid. I can't even recite one phrase, and my brother's very disappointed. He told me to leave the Sangha and look after our elderly parents at home and not to waste time. I fear that I will not have another opportunity to practice Buddhism in this life. That's why I'm sad. I beg Buddha to show mercy and bless me with your guidance." Caressing Chundapataka's scalp, the Buddha said, "You need not be sad. And neither need you leave the Sangha. Let me give you one simple phrase to recite. Sweep away the dirt." Not two parts, just one part. Sweep away the dirt. You should keep chanting these 4 words every day. Sweep away the dirt. However, being slow and forgetful, Chundapataka could not remember them even though he tried hard. 4 words he couldn't get. Feeling depressed, he started to cry again. Buddha said to him, "Every morning, after you give your Sangha's clothes a good shake, you sweep away the dust and say, 'Sweep away.' In the morning, just sweep away. In the afternoon, when you clean up the bamboo house and remove rubbish, say, 'the dirt.'" It's getting easier and easier. This way, you chant as you work, and you'll not forget the phrase, "Sweep away the dirt." Chundapataka followed Buddha's advice and kept chanting, "Sweep away the dirt," whenever he was dusting, cleaning, and sweeping the floor. Sympathetic, the other bhikkhus often chanted with him to help him memorize. Isn't that touching? Thus, more than a decade had passed. One morning when the bhikkhus were meditating in the bamboo grove, Chundapataka was cleaning in their living quarters and kept muttering, "Sweep away the dirt." Just then the sun rose through the windows. On the dust floating all around, he stared at it, and his mind immediately went into samadhi. Exiting the state, a while later, he suddenly understood it all and said, "There are 2 types of dust. The dust on the outside can be seen by the naked eye and is easy to sweep away. The dust on the inside, that is greed, anger, delusion, however, can be seen only by looking through your own mind. If you can't remove the inner dust, you will be perpetually caught up in the cycle of rebirth." Compassionate Buddha. Now I get it. I have swept away my own inner dust. And all of a sudden, over the top of Chundapataka's head, a radiant glow of light shone straight into the depths of his heart. And that is how we attained the fruition of our hardship. "10 years achieved our hardship, starting from a very deep hole in the ground. After enlightenment, naturally possessing all the world's knowledge with an unimpeded eloquence, Chundapataka became one of the Buddha's 16 disciples, the 16 arhats. Those are the premier, the creme de la creme within the Shravaka Sangha, and he was one of those 16. Although he had iti vidha, and this is paranormal abilities, precognition, clairvoyance, and so forth and so on, he had siddhis gained by way of his samadhi and then his realization. Iti is siddhi, and vidha is vidya, the knowledge of siddhis, knowledge of a supernormal power to instantly move anywhere unrestrained by time and space. In other words, he became really a Mahasiddha. He kept using his own mere strength, the strength of his muscles, to clean the dust for his fellow bhikkhus. Every day, he kept chanting the phrase Buddha gave him, "Sweep away the dirt." Okay, Big crybaby here. Maybe you see why I love this story. With his coarse mind, the one he brought to the Sangha, it was a retarded mind with very poor memory, mindfulness, probably hardly any samadhi, and very poor attention skills. But he achieved samadhi by that simple practice, consistently for 10 years. Achieve samadhi, and then your mind goes from coarse mind to subtle mind, and now you have all of the 5 jhana factors, including coarse investigation and subtle analysis. And he used those then to achieve arhatship. So he has dealt a very poor deck, if we use poker language. The mind he got, really, really poor quality. But he transcended it, his coarse mind dissolving into subtle mind, then all 5 jhana factors right there, and achieved arhatship. But only 10 years he achieved arhatship. It's like all the horses left the starting gate and are like a half mile ahead, and then he finally gets up and starts running, and he's among the 16 finalists of all the arhats. How could he do that? Being so retarded, and really terrible attention skills and memory. What did he have that many others who did not achieve arhatship in 10 years, what did he have that the others did not have? Let me guess. Aspiration and admiration. He had a great aspiration. He was weeping that he couldn't practice Dharma, and called on the Buddha himself to guide him. That's how much he wanted to achieve liberation. And admiration for the Buddha, for the Dhamma, for the Sangha. Admiration for the path and the fruition of the path. That tremendously. The other 3 of those, they're simply called object ascertaining mental processes, not so much. Mindfulness, samadhi, prajna, not much. But he had those 2, and they were virtuous. Virtuous admiration, virtuous aspiration. And he bypassed so many other thousands upon thousands of other monastics. And so what he had then could be summarized as faith, which is among the 11 virtuous or wholesome mental factors. Faith, but faith in something that is sublime. Virtue, not faith in politics or faith in some movie star or whatever. No, virtuous faith. And there are 4 kinds of it. Now, let's just go through quickly. But faith now as the root of all virtues. Tepa, gewetsawa tamshikitsawa. The root of all virtues is faith. What kind of faith? There are 4 kinds. The first is admiration, but we've seen that. But now it's admiration that is deeply virtuous. Second one, aspiration. We've seen that, but now it's conjoined with virtue. Those are 2 that otherwise just be like mercenaries. Admiration and aspiration to be bank robber, to be a billionaire, to have a beautiful spouse, and so forth and so on. They can be completely bland, or they can be really unwholesome. But when conjoined with virtue, now then this is the engine that drives your whole practice. So those are 2 out of the 4 kinds of faith, of admiration and aspiration. The third one is conviction. Conviction. What do you have faith in? Is it strong? Is it durable? Is it powerful? Conviction, confidence in the Dharma you're practicing, in the teacher who's guiding you, in the Buddha himself, in the lineage gurus from the time of Buddha himself, Padmasambhava, right on through. That deep conviction, faith, is it strong? And in yourself. If you only have faith in other people but no faith in yourself, how far are you going to get? You won't even make it through college. Not even community college. If you don't have the confidence, you can make it through pass the test in a community college. I'm not looking down, but that's kind of like bottom end of higher education. You have to have confidence, conviction, belief in yourself. It's not enough to have the teacher, the Dharma, the Buddha, and so forth. But if you have conviction, I can do it. You remember what William James said? It could be done. I will do it. And my faith shall make it so. My belief shall make it so. That's that third one, it's belief. And the fourth one is irreversible faith. Come what may, whether you find yourself diagnosed with cancer, or your best friend dies, or you just get hit by a truck and you're on a deathbed, no matter what happens, aging, sickness, and death, your faith is irreversible. Those people achieve liberation. If your faith is on again, off again, faith in the teacher, but then not so much, faith in the Lama, but not so much, faith in the Lama, but not so much, faith in yourself, well, then not so much. Get real comfortable in samsara if that's possible, because you've got a long-term visa. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. If your conviction is not irreversible, you'll never reach an irreversible path. That's for sure. So now we come to a big topic that I think is interesting, important for all of us. Whether we are, many people, most people listening by way of the video, internet, are not in retreat, but if you're listening, you are certainly are drawn to Dharma, may very well have a shamatha practice. So if you're living a socially engaged way of life, socially active, maybe doing many things, maybe raising a family, going to work every day, and so forth, or whether you're in full-time retreat, like the people here, having nothing else to do, you've set all the other priorities aside, this is the priority that overwhelms all the others, then in this lifetime, after countless lifetimes of not having this opportunity, I mean countless lifetimes, of not having the opportunity we have now, but now knowing in this lifetime we do, when you have nothing else to do all day long, you have these lovely folks bringing you food, there are repairs in your cabin, it's taken care of, you just ask and wham, Doug is there, Aaron's there. Everything taken care of you. People didn't have enough money to be here, in come the benefactors. What more do you want? You don't even have to have money to be here. All you have to do to be here is really, really have aspiration to achieve shamatha, to reach the path, admiration for reaching the path, faith and trust in the lamas, Buddha and Sangha, the lineage gurus. That's all you need. That's the only way to repay the kindness of those who are assisting you being here. And the only way that really matters are repaying the kindness of our gurus. Because by and large, we don't need money. Need a little bit of service here and there, like editing text and so forth. But that's not a lot. All the gurus really need is for us to practice. And if we don't do that, then whatever else we're doing doesn't really matter much. So how do we evaluate use that terrible P word, our progress in the practice? And I'll tell you first of all how not to do it, which if you do it this way, you're almost doomed to failure. You ready? Did that catch your attention? You're practicing whether you're doing 1 hour, 2 hours a day, mental hygiene, try to, just maintain a good level of mindfulness, introspection throughout the course of the day, in the midst of a waking life. But months go by, is your practice working? I mean, you're putting in maybe 1-2 hours a day. That's not insignificant. Is the practice working? Is it helpful? Is it worthwhile? Or could you be doing something better with your time, right? How do you know? Well, you have to judge for yourself. Don't just go, Lama, tell me, how am I doing? Let alone if you're practicing 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day in shamatha and auxiliary practices, and the weeks are going by, the months are going by, maybe even the years are going by. Hey, we're not here because somebody told us to, crack the whip and say, you better go to Miyo Samten Ling or else I'm going to get you. Nobody ever threatened us. So how do we know whether our time, whether here or whether in another 10, 12 people around the world devoting themselves full-time to practice, how do you know whether this is the best way to spend your time, whether it's worthwhile? Is it bearing good fruit? How do you know? And I'll tell you how the way not to judge that. Memorize the 9 stages and see how you're doing on the 9 stages. That's the way not to do it. That's the way almost certainly to get yourself caught in an oscillating cycle that can go on forever of hope and fear, hope and fear, hope and fear, hope and fear. Oh, today's good, it's going well. I think I probably get it next day. Oh, man. I feel like I never meditated before. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm wasting my time. What am I doing here? I could be out doing something, at least having some fun. This is not fun. I thought meditation made you peaceful. I'm not feeling peaceful at all. This really sucks. But the next day, oh, and that's not that bad. Actually, there's some hope here. I'm on stage 2, I think. Next day, I'm on stage 1 again. That's the way to fail. Evaluating your practice on the basis of something for which you have no control. You can't control how fast you will progress on the path of shamatha. If you can control that, and I say control it, get back to me tomorrow and let me know whether it was in the morning or afternoon to achieve shamatha. If you can control it, then just do it. And give me the good news tomorrow. I'll give you a big kiss on the cheek. And to Aaron, I give a big hug, man to man. That's the way to fail. Because you can't control that. Gambling. We're not gamblers here. Anybody who starts a business, starts with a family and so forth, you're all gamblers. Get married, you're gambling. Have kids, you're gambling. Start a business, you're gambling. Get a job, you're gambling. There's no guarantee anywhere in samsara that any of those are going to turn out well. No guarantee whatsoever. Out of your control. How shall we evaluate? Because we want to evaluate. We should evaluate. We're not just doing this for no reason, had nothing else to do. How do we evaluate how we're practicing, whether in a socially engaged way of life or in complete solitude, pedal to the metal? In the course of intensive shamatha practice, especially, and even more especially, in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen practices of taking the mind as a path, settling the mind as natural state, shamatha without a sign, especially in these discovery approaches to shamatha, it is just about certain, not absolutely, but just about certain, that the deeper you go, the more you'll be dredging your psyche, and outer, inner, and private upheavals will happen. Very rarely do you come with such purity that you just sail right on through and it's just rose petals all the way. It happens, but it's very rare. But the rest of us, if we're following this path, Mahamudra Dzogchen path of shamatha, we're going to be hitting yam. We're going to be hitting outer, inner, and secret upheavals. And many of them, most of them, will not be pleasant. Because what we're bringing to the table is a whole bunch of habitual propensities, most of them heavily afflictive. And as long as we're looking outwards and keeping busy and watching television and working and having vacations and keeping busy, we always keep on looking outwards, and what's inwards remains subconscious. Because we're looking outwards, right? When you're in solitude, there's hardly anything happening outwards. So then the inward becomes outward. And what was already there becomes manifest as outer, inner, and private upheaval. So how are you doing in the practice? There's one way that is really authentic. How are you responding to the upheavals? Not whether they happen or not, whether they're pleasant or intense or lukewarm or namby-pamby. You can't control that. How do you respond to the upheavals? In your environment, in your body, and in your mind. Everything hinges on that, and that you can control. And that's the criterion of determining, am I practicing well, am I progressing well or not? And as the weeks, months go by, if you're not seeing that you're becoming increasingly capable, skillful, adept at rising to the challenge of each of the upheavals and mastering them and subduing them and transforming them into the path, that's success. And whether you remain in stage 1 or 2 of the 9 stages of shamatha, I don't care, because that you can't control. Or the 4 mindfulness, that you can't control either. But what you can control is, are you applying everything you know of the Dharma, transforming especially adversity into the path? Are you doing that? And I'm receiving reports, and by and large, the people are doing fantastically. Some of your upheavals are really pretty awful. Really quite awful. Some of them not so bad. But again, he reports every 2 months. And every 2 months from people abroad. By and large, I have to say I'm really proud of you. It's silly because I'm not your dad or anything like that, but you're really rising to the occasion. That's why I'm here. You can go on the internet and get all the information you need to know about these shamatha practices. It's not hidden. It's all there. The books, we have lots of books about them, tell you exactly what to do. So I'm not a book. I'm not the internet. You got all the information you need right there in the internet. All they need the book. All the podcasts of teachings I've given in the past, let alone others. That's a criterion. If we get hung up, oh, but I'm not progressing, then you'll start telling yourself stories that will persuade you to come and give up everything. This is not for me. I'm not up to it. I can't do it. Instead of observing the Nyam, you'll be identifying with the Nyam, and you're taking refuge in the Nyam, and they're your guru now. And then it's only a matter of time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. This is important. Even if one's only practicing an hour or two, you should see the effects. Is your mind more calm, more centered, greater empathy, greater resilience? And whether you're out in the world, you call them outer Nyam, you call them just the hassles of samsara. Are you dealing with things better? Are you showing greater kindness, empathy, loving kindness? Is mindfulness better? Are you more discerning? That you can control. That you can cultivate. So there's no mystery there. You don't need to run to Lama and say, Lama, how am I doing? You tell me. This is important. Throttle back from this. It's a masterpiece. Jujum Rinpoche Jikta Yeshidorje. Advice for practice in mountain retreat. I'm going to give a rather long excerpt. Because of the profundity and intense power of the great perfection, there will also be obstacles, just as great profit often comes with great risk. This is because all the negative karma you've accumulated in the past is catalyzed due to the power of these practical instructions. And this manifests externally as the upheavals of demonic interferences and apparitions. Psychologically, you may inexplicably experience intense misery and sadness. So it'll make you want to weep. I'm such a loser. Low self-esteem, depression coming up, all the wind going out of your sails, all the inspiration, all the joy, all the enthusiasm, all of it gone. It's called a Nyam. It's called an upheaval. It's an inner upheaval. And make you want to weep, feeling sorry for yourself. You may experience strong mental afflictions, and your sense of admiration and reverence, bodhicitta and compassion may decline. These are all upheavals. Doesn't mean you're a loser. Doesn't mean you're a bad practitioner. Doesn't mean you're making no progress. What it does mean is all of those were there already. And now, because you have nothing to distract you from your practice and you're dredging your psyche, they are coming up so you can see them. And it's not pleasant. You may misinterpret words intended to help you. The guru gives you advice. No, I don't want to hear that. No. Oh, no, bad guru. Down, boy. Bad guru. You're not telling me what I wanted to hear. And losing the desire to remain in retreat, you may consider abandoning your samayas. You may experience false views regarding your guru, doubts about the Dharma, and so on. Oh, these are indications of upheavals. So recognize them. Don't take refuge in them. Don't embrace them. Don't identify with them. Otherwise, they will take you in the opposite direction of Dharma. Here is the demarcation between profit and loss. If you embrace those obstacles, accept them by means of the critical points of practice, they will turn into cities. One could even say, commentary, the stronger the upheaval, the more unbearable the upheaval, the more disturbing the upheaval, the more powerful the city it will transform into. If and only if you transform it into the path. If you don't, it will defeat you. If you fall under their influence, they will become hindrances. With pure samayas, admiration, reverence, and unfaltering courage, and trust your heart and mind to the Guru, and earnestly pray to him or her with confidence in whatever he or she, the Guru, may do. So you remember Dupan Lama Karma said, 99% of the people engaged in the kind of practice that we're doing here, full on, 99% give up. Not here. Not here. 99 have, we wouldn't have anybody left. We don't have 100 people here. And some of you have been here for years and you've not given up. But on the whole, statistically, it's too tough. And you can develop an aversion to the practice itself. But I'll tell you, you think it's an aversion to the practice. It's not. It's not aversion. You may tell yourself, I don't like to do the practice. I don't like meditation. I don't want to be in I don't like it. It's not. You got that wrong. What you don't like is your mind. Being aware of thoughts is like being aware of a bad movie. But it's not the awareness that you don't like. It's the bad movie you don't like. That's what you don't like. And because you have nothing else to do but be with your mind, and after a while the mind is unbearable, you say, I don't like the practice. But it's not the practice. What's not like breathing out, breathing in mindfully? Being aware of awareness, what's not to like? Simply resting in the stillness of awareness, observing moving thoughts, what's not to like? But what you don't like is the thoughts that are moving. That's what you don't like. And if you think you can escape from your mind by coming out of retreat, you got another thing coming. Because it's not going anywhere. It's going right with you. By regarding unfavorable circumstances as something desirable. And by striving diligently in your practice, eventually the substantiality of those circumstances will naturally dissolve. And they will instead empower your practice. That's the words of Dujum Rinpoche, the mind emanation of Dujum Lingpa. So just in case you had forgot those words, I wanted to remind you. Now I'm going to share with you something you've never heard. Because a lot of you heard that. Oh yeah, we heard this before. Yeah. Well, in 2015, when Yangchen Rinpoche invited, I was part of the invitation, about 30 people to his home to receive pith instructions on the view, meditation, and conduct of Dzogchen. I was co-translating for him with a wonderful Nepalese Khenpo. There's this text, which I think you've probably already seen, but what you haven't seen is the person who initiated this teaching, was the initial host or instigator of it, was an Englishwoman named Annika Mothersdale. And then she invited me to be involved. We picked people and on it went. But then I believe it was she transcribed all of the oral teachings he gave. And I was just going through my files several days and oh wow, all the transcripts here. Now they were totally unedited and so forth. But I remembered something that he'd said, and I couldn't find it in a straight teaching. Then I went to Q&A, and there it was. And so I just did like what Siddhartha is doing to Dharma Talks of Mind, doing editing, make it good English. Here's some words he shared with us that you've not heard before, because I've never shared this with anybody else. Here's what he said. From a man that Bena Rinpoche, who was then the head of the whole Nyingma order, said, Yangchen Rinpoche, he's the most highly realized of all living Nyingma lamas. So those are the words. Forget me. I'm not even here. Imagine you're sitting with him right now. The embodiment of Dzogchen. Here's what he's telling you. There are many methods for developing shamatha, but in this union of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, the classic approach is to loosely invert your awareness and then loosely rest your awareness on whatever comes up. It's very important here that whatever comes up, you just let it be and don't try to improve your mind. Now, what he doesn't say is don't feel bad about it. Low self-esteem comes up, anxiety comes up, depression comes up, anger comes up, resentment comes up, lust comes up. Don't feel bad. They're just bad neighbors. They're not yours. Don't feel bad about it, and don't try to fix them. Be like really being in a really bad neighborhood and going from house to house. Now, I want to give you some advice here. You should stop doing this. And now you, too. You should stop. You know your dog? You should really put a muzzle on that dog. And you, oh, forget about you. I think you're hopeless. You can't fix the neighborhood. It's unfixable. They don't want your help. And your mind doesn't want your help either. So don't try to fix it. Let it be. Let it be. Whatever comes up, don't try to improve your mind. That doesn't sound too hard. Improve your mind, that sounds hard. If especially you have a mind like mine, oh my goodness. He continues to practice meditation, and first of all, a suitable environment is what is required. You have to seek a peaceful place where there's no distraction in an environment that is completely suitable for you to do your practice. It is best if you can go into solitary retreat in the mountains. Gosh, can we find such a place? But for the foreigners, their life is so busy that you need both, Dharma and the worldly life. I mean, he's talking to people who have jobs, kids, spouses, mortgages, etc., parents. So for you foreigners, you Westerners, by and large, you folks can't go into solitary retreat. Among the 30 people there was hardly anybody that went from there into solitary retreat. And these were handpicked. But hardly anybody has that opportunity, let alone a conducive environment, let alone with conducive fellow travelers, let alone with a qualified teacher, one or more. That's way more rare than a star in the daytime. So the life is so busy that you need both Dharma and the world life. They have to go hand in hand, which is quite impossible to do. But you still have to do it. I remember him saying that. You can't do it, but you still have to do it. And then he was asked by a fellow named Chucho. Remember, anybody remember Chucho? Yeah, remember him? He had a question. When asked how we can regain confidence in our shamatha practice and not just think we're doing the practice for the sake of a blessing or for practicing, but not just for a blessing or this is good for future lifetimes, you get really good imprints, but no, practicing for real transformation, real bodhicitta, for ultimate bodhicitta. How can we regain our confidence when the wind goes out of our sails? We just really get depressed and discouraged and have low self-esteem. What do we do? And he emphasized the importance, first of all, of immersing oneself in the 4 revolutions and outlook. I want to pause just momentarily there, because this is my analogy. I have one thing that's original, I'm about to share it. I hope you like it, because it's the only thing I got. It's been the one little trinket out of my satchel. 4 revolutions and outlook. What you are many familiar with, because it's been bandied around for years, 4 thoughts that turn the mind. That's one of the silliest translations that's entered into common parlance. It's really silly. That's not what it says at all. It's wrong. I'll show you how wrong. A really good, accurate translation is 4 revolutions and outlook. Lo, do, namji. Namji means 4 types. Lo, do, lo is your mind. Do means not turning. I'm gazing at gache, and then I turn my attention to Tamada. And then I turn my attention to Yeshe. That's turning. 2 degrees here, 5 degrees there, I'm turning. Veer left, I'm turning. That's not what it says. Dok means about face. Turning around entirely 180 degrees. That's what dok means. It's not 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And they're not thoughts. They are fundamentally different ways of viewing a reality that will turn your world upside down. Your priorities upside down. Whatever you're doing, think the opposite. That's what the Lodok Namji are about. They're total revolutions. Like thinking the Earth is in the center of the universe, we have the sun and moon, a handful of stars, and then 3,000 stars up there. They're so pretty. That's what everybody thought in Europe until Galileo. 3,000 stars. Thank you, Lord, they're so pretty. As opposed to, and I have to just sit there and blew my mind with a number. I still haven't gotten over it. I mentioned to Aaron, you know how many galaxies are? 100 years ago, that was 1 galaxy, ours. A couple years later, there were 2 or 3. You know how many galaxies they estimate there are in the universe now? 2 trillion. 2 trillion galaxies. And 1 galaxy has anywhere between, the tiniest galaxy, 100 million stars. That's a little bitty baby one. The biggest galaxy has 100 trillion stars. That's the vastness of space. My mind just really staggers at that. 2 trillion galaxies. How many sentient beings? And when the Buddhists say countless, in countless worlds, 2 trillion is pretty darn close to countless. A revolution from Galileo to the James Webb Space Telescope. That's a revolution in the way of viewing the whole of reality, planet Earth, sun, moon, stars, and 2 trillion galaxies in an expanding space. That's a revolution. You'll never look at Earth or the stars, the planets, ever again in the same way. You got it exactly wrong to think that we're the one inhabited place in the whole universe and all there is for our entertainment. Thank you, sun, it's so warm. Thank you, moon, you're very pretty. You got it all wrong. When we came into this life from the Bardo, a Bardo being is called a Gandharva, your Gandharva mind collapses. It becomes non-existent. It collapses. You're dying as a Gandharva, and it goes backwards right into the substrate. And then your stream of consciousness conjoins with the union of the egg and sperm. But your first moment is substrate, and that is unknowing. You enter into this life in a spirit of unknowing, not knowing, ignorance. Out of that emerges the substrate consciousness. And then as that stream of consciousness is configured by the egg, sperm, the whole nervous system eventually, and so forth, then you wind up with a mind. And then you're born 9 months later, having been a sentient being in the mother's womb for the last 9 months. You are never a body part. An egg is a body part. A sperm is a body part. As soon as it starts to grow, it's not a body part. It's a passenger. Not a human being. Two cells, 3 or 4 cells, not a human being. But unlike single or multiple cell organisms, they're not turning into human beings. That is. So we come in an unknowing. When we're in the Gandharvas and we see the man and woman coupling, we're drawn in because we want something. We're drawn to it. We're attracted to it. Generally speaking, when you take birth, you're drawn to it. You want happiness, you want to be free of suffering, and you're drawn to it. Oh, that couple, I think she'd make a good mom. She'd make a good dad. Okay. Whew. You come in with a hope, this is going to turn out well. They're going to be good parents. I'm going to have a happy life, and I'll find the happiness that I seek. Phew, and you dive right in. We come in from unknowing, and then the aspiration, this time samsara is going to turn out well. It's like a person wandering around a big, big city like LA, Los Angeles, looking for the on-ramp to the freeway, because you want to go to San Francisco. You really, really, really want to get out of Los Angeles to San Francisco. And you're looking for the on-ramp. And you come, there's a freeway, you see it right there, there it is. And then you pass out just for a moment. You just become mindless, become unknowing. And you get onto what you think is the on-ramp. And oh boy, I'm about to make it to the path. And then you get onto the on-ramp, and doggone, all the traffic is coming towards you. You just got onto the off-ramp. Out of ignorance of knowing where the on-ramp is and the off-ramp is, you got onto the off-ramp. And now you are, and all these cars are coming at you 60, 70 miles an hour, and you thought this was going to turn out well. When you're facing the traffic, there you are merging with traffic, and it's all coming against you. There are 2 thoughts that turn your mind. Only 2. Here comes a truck, left. Here comes a car, right. Here comes 3 cars, left, and now right. You have only 2 thoughts that turn your mind, this way and that way, as you're trying to dodge all the oncoming traffic. 2 thoughts that turn the mind. A little bit this way, a little bit that way. And wondering, when will it ever end? And of course it doesn't. When does the freeway become empty? Even at 2 o'clock, there's going to be some cars coming, heading right towards you, head-on collision. It will turn out badly. And you think, I need 4 thoughts to turn the mind. I need 4 thoughts to turn the mind. Turn a little bit to the left, a lot to the left. A little bit to the right, a lot to the right. Those are 4 thoughts that turn the mind to avoid the oncoming traffic. But it's only a matter of time before you can hit the cards called aging, sickness, and death. And then it doesn't turn out well. You have a head-on collision. And then you get to have another ride. The only thing to do is get off to the side and stop. Get out of the flow of traffic and stop. That's called shamatha. Stillness of mind. Stop. You're out of harm's way. The cars are now zooming by you, but you're over there on the side. Now, turn your car around and go in the opposite direction. That's lodo. That is not turning your mind. That's turning your mind around. And now you can go with the flow of traffic. You're heading towards San Diego, which is not really exactly the way you wanted. But at least you don't have all the oncoming traffic. That's my original for today. Don't mistake the on-ramp for the off-ramp. And whenever we come in thinking this will turn out well, we've just hit the off-ramp. Because you're cramped inside this little container for 9 months. Just imagine how claustrophobic that is. And then you're squeezed through this little hole, and it's difficult to tell whether it's more painful for the mother or the baby. And you come out, and the first thing is you shout your head off. I'm sure when I was born in Pasadena, I was pissed off. I was pissed off. I pissed right over the doctor's head. I was so pissed off. No rainbows, no no flowers falling from the sky. But I was pissed off. I think I wanted to go to Plaza, and I got to Los Angeles instead. Such a bummer. So the 4 revolutions, each one of these is going to turn your world upside down if you really get it. I won't describe to you just what is the common view in the world around us. What does it mean to be human? Fill in the blanks. Your parents had sex. What else? You have to turn that entirely around to recognize how astronomically rare it is to have a life of leisure and opportunity. Inconceivably rare. Just be able to practice Dharma, let alone to be in a place like this. This is inconceivably inconceivable. Have to turn that entirely around, your whole notion of what your existence means, what it is. Everything you thought, believe, it's all wrong. Death is for other people, right? It's for old people. It's for people who have cancer. It's for people who are not careful when they cross the street. It's not for people like me. I'm still young. I don't look like it, but I know inside I'm really young. Want me to jig? I can jig for you. Death is not for me. It's for other people. Dying people, hospitals. That's for dying people. And it's certainly not coming soon. That's for sure. Look at me. I'm healthy. Everything you think about, and of course when it happens, it just lights out. What's the big deal? Whew. Everything you thought about death is wrong. Turn it totally on its head. And you're in here to have a good time, live a colorful life, have a happy family, good job, great pension, great vacations. Because samsara is really not such a bad place if you're white and affluent and healthy. And shall I go on? And you're not living in Gaza, and you're not living in Kiev, and you're not living in Beijing, and you're not living in any number of the countries in Africa, and not living in most places of the world. But if you're living in Beverly Hills or Crestone, samsara is really not that bad. And of course, what we do, if you can get away with it, you're scot-free, right? Just don't let anybody know. Keep it quiet. Because who believes in karma except for those Buddhists? Everything you thought about your actions, everything you thought about your existence, everything you thought about the nature of death and your life, everything was wrong. If you just picked up what's in the air. And you have to turn them all around. And if you turn it all around, there's only one answer, and there's nothing to do all day long besides practice Dharma. That's why it's called 4 revolutions. So that was his first response. Immerse yourself in the 4 revolutions and outlook. And then he replied, and I quote, and I've never read this before, so this is hot off the press. When you rest the mind in its natural state and get signs of success in that, recognize this is not the main practice. But it is the preparation for the main practice. In this way, you can gradually, step by step, build confidence. Because there is a path from the beginning to end within the context of Dzogchen. So don't lose heart, but have a lofty aspiration. And what is most important is to have faith. And then again and again offer prayers of supplication to your Yidam, to your Root Lama, to the Three Jewels, with a sense of utterly entrusting yourself to the objects of refuge. And have a long-term view. That is, think, however long it takes, I will do it with no notion of giving up. Have that courage. Maintain a kind of balance of alternating between accumulating merit and the resting in meditative equipoise. And then you will progress. And don't lose heart. That was his fifth instruction to us. But he did say there are times when it's good to alternate. So it's not if you leave here, oh, you're a loser, you let everybody down. No, there are times to accumulate merit. I went into my first retreat, a long retreat, in 1980. But I didn't stay in retreat. Eventually I came out. Had to, needed to. Got a degree at Amherst, did something meaningful, accrued some merit. Translated for lamas, taught Dharma. And then went back into retreat. I didn't stay in retreat. After some time, it was quite clear I needed to come out of retreat. But I went back in retreat again and again and again. It was only last December, in 72 years of living, that I had an opportunity to go into retreat that didn't have a bookend on it, 6 months. Never had that opportunity, never gave myself that opportunity. 72 years old. And I don't have any bookend on this retreat either. My wife isn't telling me, come home, sweetie. She said, stay until you get realization. Don't hurry. She didn't say don't hurry, but you know. That's what she meant. I'm very glad. Duba Lama Karmas. I saw 200 people signed up for the first lecture, 100 people for the second, and now that we're streaming, only about 75 people. I hope those others didn't give up. He commented on November 10th, something I've never heard before. A lot of familiar. I've been studying Shamatha since 1972. So I've heard most of the things that you can say. I've heard most of it. Haven't heard this one before. I think Yangchen has, but I haven't. He said, and I quote, November 10th, this month, once you have achieved Shamatha, if you apply yourself to the practice of Vajrayana, you can achieve enlightenment in 12 years. How many countless lifetimes have we had no chance of achieving enlightenment? I mean, countless lifetimes. Among these 2 trillion galaxies, how many times we don't even hear the word Dharma? We're not even human. There are 8 billion human beings, 20 billion animals. Do you get that? That means there are 2.5 billion animals for every human being here. If you go down to take an animal rebirth, it's like playing a lottery. You have 1 chance out of 2.5 billion of getting a human rebirth again, if it's straight statistics. That's an animal realm, not Pretor hell realm. That's worse down there. So now we're a human being. But now in this lifetime, achieve shamatha, little bitty shamatha. And he said, you can achieve enlightenment in 12 years. That's what he said. Now I've had the enormous privilege, I mean really inconceivable privilege, of now being in personal communication by way of WhatsApp with the current incarnation of Dujum Rinpoche. One passed away, as you know, but the other one born in Bhutan, alive and well with fluent English. And Alfonso in Spain got me connected with his personal secretary, and then his secretary said, Rinpoche, communicate directly. I mean, just unbelievable. I'm speaking with Dujum Lingpa. And it's open door now at communication. He knew who I was already. He knew of me. Yay. But we've corresponded, and I've told him what we're doing, what I'm doing, what we are doing. And in his correspondence to me on October 23rd, WhatsApp, I'm just going to cite one phrase that he used. I've never heard it before. What we are doing, the journey we are on, I am on, we are on. He referred to it as the path, to this path that we're following here and students around the world on full-time retreat. He called it a journey to nothingness. I've never heard that phrase before. But this is Dujum Lingpa, the mind emanation of Dujum Lingpa, called what we are doing the journey to nothingness. It's a shocker, isn't it? A journey to nothingness. Okay, that's it. He left it for me to interpret. I'm going to do that. I've heard a bit of Dharma over the last 53 years. There's three kinds of nothingness that spring to mind. The nothingness of dissolving your human identity into the substrate, consciously and lucidly, by way of shamatha practice. So your coarse mind becomes less than a memory, because you've dissolved it, you released it. And in that backwards movement from a coarse mind back to coarse mentation, subtle mentation, afflictive mentation, substrate consciousness, right back into the substrate. The substrate is kind of nothingness. There's no human being there. There's no human being in the substrate consciousness. And when you're resting in the substrate consciousness, you're not male, you're not female, you're not even human. You're not even human. You're not a human experienced in substrate consciousness. Human is a memory that you've forgotten. It's just substrate consciousness. And aware of nothing, but luminously, brilliantly aware of the substrate, which is sheer vacuity. So you've dissolved your very sense of who you are, your personal identity, your gender, personality, hopes and fears, everything you think you are. Mexican, American, male, female, and so forth. All gone. Stripped bare naked to sheer luminosity and cognizance. That's trip into nothing, nothingness. Just achieving shamatha. And then there's the nothingness of dissolving your identity as a sentient being into emptiness. In emptiness, there is no reality of suffering, no source. There are no sentient beings. There's no attainment. There's no non-achievement. There's no sentient being in emptiness, let alone human being. There's not even any sentient being in the direct realization of emptiness. There's no sentient being anywhere in sight. That being, your identity as a sentient being, is completely and then that's in emptiness, in which that sense of being a sentient being is completely deactivated in the Dzogchen practice of resting in the open presence of pristine awareness. So beyond emptiness is resting in pristine awareness, no sentient being anywhere in sight, completely turned off. All the switches, click, 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 click. No sentient being activated anywhere, not a trace, body, speech, or mind, no identity. Gone, all that's left is who you are, and always have been. Pristine awareness, Dharmakaya. And then finally, I'm putting emptiness and pristine awareness into one category here. Third one, the nothingness of the extinction of all impure appearances into the primordial union of the Dharmakaya and Dharmadhatu, from which emerge its naturally pure creative displays. So samsara becomes totally nothingness. Irreversibly, will you never see, from your perspective, you'll never see samsara again. Only pure appearances, but that extinction, the fourth vision in Tutgel, the extinction of all the appearances irreversibly into dharmata. And once you emerge from that, the only appearances to you, to your awareness, are pure appearances. So this journey to nothingness. Oh boy, I said I'd go, okay, I'm going to cover not all the notes today, but I think it's okay. A few quotes, but holding this in mind, the journey to nothingness. I'm going to read some Shantideva, and I said it'd be only an hour and a half, and I'm finished. I'll just do it. Shantideva, this first quote, I've just remembered from the first time I read it. It just whacked me. As a result of surrendering everything, your own identity, your possessions, everything you think is yours. As a result of surrendering everything, there is nirvana. And my mind seeks nirvana. Surrendering everything at once, this is the greatest gift to sentient beings. So surrendering everything to the ultimate nirvana, surrendering everything to horizontally to all sentient beings, bodhicitta. This is the greatest gift to sentient beings, giving away everything. No strings attached. I find that very, very powerful. The next one I love, and I've retranslated it. I'll read my current translation. The unfriendly, now in terms of becoming non-existent, the journey to nothingness. We're all on a trajectory whoever you are in any of the 6 realms, the 3 realms of existence, 6 classes, we're all on a journey to nothingness. Practice Dharma, don't practice Dharma, virtue, non-virtue, evil, virtue, we're all on a journey to nothingness. This is what Shantideva said. The unfriendly will become non-existent. The friendly too will become non-existent. And I shall become non-existent as well. And likewise, everything will become non-existent. Like the experience of a dream, whatever we enjoy will be reduced to a memory, and everything that has passed will not be seen again. He just described how it turns out on the journey of samsara. A journey to nothingness countless times. I am, whoops, I am not. Now the earlier translation, probably quite ubiquitous, because there's several translations of Bodhisattva, is enemies will become non-existent. But that's not what it said. Enemy is da in Tibetan. This is midza. Midza means unfriendly. Unfriendly. We may not like somebody and say, oh, he's my enemy. Why? Because I don't like him. He's a real stinker. But an unfriendly, that's what is midza. An unfriendly is a person who is unfriendly to us in warfare. Like in Afghanistan, when Americans invaded and were so unhappy they didn't like us invading their country. They spoke of the unfriendlies. And then in warfare, oh, this person was caught in friendly fire. He's still dead, but they didn't mean it, because it was friendly fire that blew him up. Whoops! But unfriendly, that means somebody who's unfriendly, they don't like you invading their country, like Iraq, like Afghanistan, like Grenada, like Vietnam. Shall I go on? Of the America coming in as great liberator, invading other people's country, and somehow they don't like it. It's the weirdest thing. But the unfriendlies are the people who don't like you. The Buddha had unfriendlies that were jealous of him, tried to kill him, tried to humiliate him. He had unfriendlies. He bore ill will to no one, of course, but he had unfriendlies. Jesus had some unfriendlies, quite a number of unfriendlies. They did manage to kill him because they were unfriendly. But everybody who's unfriendly to you, for whom then we feel hurt, we feel resentful, we feel afraid, and so forth, they're all going to become non-existent. And then we have the friendlies, the people that like us. Family, friends, loved ones, spouses, Dharma friends, teachers, and so forth. But they're all going to become non-existent. They become memories, and then not even that. And then I, too, will become non-existent, where I won't even be able to remember who I was. 100 years from now, who knows? Somebody might bump into me and say, ever heard of a guy named Alan Wallace? No? Is he a Scot? Alan Wallace? Never heard of him. Why do you ask? And he said, oh, but he's really famous. Good for him. What's that got to do with me? So he's famous, big deal. Few people remember him. I'll become non-existent. And everything we'll experience will become like a dream. But it's hard to even remember one dream from last night. And a week from now, unless it was a remarkable dream, we won't even remember it. We had a dream at all. That takes all the wind out of the sails of I like and I don't like. Attachment and aversion. And it takes all the juice out of engaging in non-virtue, out of attachment for the friendlies. Engaging in hostile activity, resentment, anger, retaliation to the unfriendlies. It makes it all just a farce. It's absolute stupidity to sacrifice one's Dharma practice for the friendlies. Because you won't even know who they are. They'll become nothing, you'll become nothing. And to sacrifice the most precious thing in your life because of family or friends, Shantideva is saying, boy, it's a big mistake. And then we're wrapping it up just a few minutes after. This is the beginning, how he starts out, chapter 8 on meditation. Upon developing zeal, enthusiasm, the 4th paramita, because he's gone through each of the paramitas, generosity, ethics, patience, and then zeal or enthusiasm. Upon developing, those are the ngundo. People wonder about the ngundo. What are the ngundo for shamatha? Is it the 5, do you have to do 100 prostrations, maybe 100,000 mandala offerings, recitations of one sort or another? No. Nowhere does it say that, not in any tradition that has any authenticity to it. Those are for Vajrayana practices, state regeneration completion, specifically. But as the Dalai Lama hammered home when I was translating for him way back in 1979, those sets of 5, those are for Vajrayana practice. Shamatha is not a Vajrayana practice. Shamatha is shamatha. The Drupal Lama Karma said. Non-Buddhists practice it, the Bumbos practice it. A lot of non-Buddhists practice it and achieve it. There's nothing Buddhist about shamatha. It's nothing unique. Right? So what are the ngundo for practicing and achieving shamatha? The first 4 perfections. That your whole practice is rooted in generosity. Every aspect of your practice, every breath in and out is a service to sentient beings. Generosity. All of your practice is generosity. This is how I repay the kindness of the Guru. This is how I repay the kindness of all sentient beings. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. It's generosity. It's not something you do now and then. The whole practice becomes an expression of generosity. Imbued with ethics, non-violence above all. And then when you hit the nyam, patience, forbearance, fortitude, guts, courage. If you don't have that, you're not ready for enthusiasm. The enthusiasm will be on again, off again. Suddenly, oh, I'm very happy, I'm very enthusiastic. Oh, it's snowing. Ah, bummer, I don't like it when it snows. Enthusiasm will be up again, down again, up again, down again. It'll have no constancy if it doesn't have the true grit, the backbone of fortitude, courage, patience. Enthusiasm, like watching water flow down the hill. Patience, like beating a donkey up the hill. But you have to go beyond patience. You have to go to enthusiasm. So then when you slip into 8th chapter on meditation, upon having developed enthusiasm in that way, one should stabilize the mind and have meditative concentration, samadhi, since a person whose mind is distracted lives between the fangs of mental afflictions. Final quote, and then we'll take our break. Recognizing that the mental afflictions are eradicated by vipassana, imbued with shamatha, one should first seek shamatha. And that's achieved with detachment toward the world, towards loved ones, friends, family, entertainment, work, everything samsara has to offer. It doesn't mean we turn our back on them and say, oh, no fui on you. It just means no attachment at all. And you never sacrifice your dharma for people who want something else from you. Bad investment. That's achieved with a detachment toward the world and with joy. The joy comes from enthusiasm. The joy comes when you're resting in awareness, being aware there's nothing else in the world you'd rather do. You're resting in stillness of awareness, watching the myriad thoughts come and go, and there's nothing else you'd rather do. Not eat ice cream, not go for a skiing holiday. Nothing you'd rather do. If there's something you'd rather do, go off and do it. With my blessing. There's no reason to stay here if there's something you'd rather do. Something you'd feel more meaningful. With my blessing. You don't need my blessing. You don't need my permission. Nobody ever needs permission to leave here. You need permission to come here. Nobody needs permission to leave, ever. Pack your bags, send me a postcard. Difficult to get in. Easy to get out. If there's something more meaningful to do than practice all Dharma all day and know yourself, know your mind, there's something more meaningful than do that. Get back to me when you're finished. Because whatever you're doing will never turn out to be satisfying. So I'm going to share with you, I'm going to wrap it in just a few minutes and then I'm like 1 or 2 minutes. There's the text that Drupal Lama Karma is teaching from. It's a masterpiece. I've never heard of it before. Never even heard of the author before. The 3rd Khamtrul Rinpoche, 3rd, 4th, 7th, whatever. It's a masterpiece. And it's very well translated by an old friend of mine, Gerardo Abu. He's Argentinian. Beautiful English, or he had some help from a native English speaker. It's a very good translation. 2-volume set, like 800 pages. But Drupal Lama Karma is teaching just from the first volume and right from the beginning. going right into Shamatha, and those following, spending a lot of time on posture. But he's going to move on. The next one is settling speech in its natural state. That will get interesting. But it's really a beautiful text. It's a magnificent text. And following his presentation of Shamatha, then he spends he's citing all kinds of sources like Karmachame, this sutra, that tantra, this lama, that lama, he does that. It's a classic style. And then, like Karmachame on occasion, then he just throttles back and say, now I'm going to give you my own pith instructions. And he spends, 5 or 6 pages, something like that, eulogizing the tremendous benefit of observing the mind. I've never seen anything like it. It's spectacular. It's really, really moving. Just reading through it. I've been reading stuff a long time, but I read this, and my goodness, that is so inspiring. And I really wanted to share it with everybody on this call. And so I wrote to Shambhala, they have the copyright, but it turns out the copyright belongs to the translator, Gerardo. So they said, well, we'd love you to do it, but we have to ask the translator. So then they contacted, well, we're all buddies. He's saying, well, Alan's asking for it. He said, sure, happy, because this book is largely underrated, largely ignored. It's a fantastic book from the Mahamudra tradition, the Kagyu tradition. And Gerardo says, yeah, go for it. And I promised, it's not just an excerpt out of the blue, it's out of this text, just volume 1, of course, called The Royal Seal of Mahamudra. It's an incredible book, and he's going to continue teaching it on the Shamatha section. So everybody listening, I have permission from both Shambhala and from Gerardo. Yes, I can share this excerpt. Let everybody know where it's coming from, and then link it. Yangshila has linked it to being able to purchase the book. It's really a wonderful book. And so I encourage you to get the book, especially those following his teachings. But this excerpt, I'll leave you with this. It's really incredible. Never seen anything like it. And I've been seeing Shamatha literature for 51 years now. It's really quite extraordinary. If you don't find it inspiring, I think you need to find another line of work, because it's incredible. So with the permission, I'm sharing that. There's a link to purchasing the volume itself. You can get it on Kindle or hard copy. So that's that. There's a lot more to come, but not today. We're going to start 6 weeks from now with a juicy quote you've heard before, but I'm going to give it to you again because it's so cool. From Machig Lepton. Incarnation of Yeshe Sogyal. Quintessential. I've taught it before. You're going to get it again. And then we'll move on from there. So that's it for now. Okay? So I was checking. This is the first public Dharma talk I've given since the spring retreat. It's for everybody. So I was like a humpback whale that will go down for 1 hour and then come up for air. Today I'm coming up for air. And I'll be going down again for 6 weeks. And then you come up again. And a lot of you are like camels who don't get to drink that much water, especially if you're isolated, don't have a Dharma teacher nearby and so forth. But do you know how long a camel can go without drinking water? During the cooler season? 6 months. So you have 6 weeks to assimilate, immerse yourself in the 4 revolutions and outlook, throw into the dustbin 4 thoughts that turn the mind, because they're just avoiding this traffic and that traffic, avoiding head-on collisions with samsara. Good luck with that. 6 weeks, total immersion into this. And this will be a brief guide to mental health and well-being. And that's essential for Vipassana. And anybody who goes into Vajrayana with all the crap we're bringing to the table, without having purified the mind through Shamatha, good luck. Even Vipassana, you're never going to get off the ground. It won't even really be Vipassana if it's not rooted in Shamatha. We'll get to that in 6 weeks. But achieve Shamatha in 12 years? Following a master like Drupal Lama Karma, like Dujum Rinpoche, who now knows who we are, 12 years. Countless previous lifetimes. Achieve Shamatha, as Yandra Rinpoche said, however long it takes. Don't give up. Because if you give up on this, nothing else is going to happen. Vipassana, Vajrayana, state regeneration, completion, Poa, Chut, Dumo, you name it, it ain't going to happen. You get a lot of really good imprints and then hope for the best. But you're not going to reach the path, not without shamatha. You all know that, but we can easily forget.